Hello, programmers. Welcome back. This is kind of my last video in the quote-unquote class series, but this isn't really about classes. It kind of is, but really it's like three little programming tips and tricks, if you will. Um, Either ways to solve a little bit of a complicated issue, or ways to save yourself some typing, or ways to make sure you don't look like you don't know what you're doing, maybe. So I think these are kind of interesting. You can write code and write workable code that does the same thing and never ever know about these things, but they are helpful. So I'm going to start with probably the one that's actually most likely to show up for you as an actual error or bug, and a way to work around it. So I talked about with constructors, we take a string, it gets passed into this string loc variable, and then this loc variable gets saved in team location. Well, what happens, because loc and team location are different variables, what happens if we name them the same thing? And I want to save one into the other. Well, this doesn't work the way you really want it to. The program is not going to assume or intuit that you're trying to take this local variable team location that is local, which means that it's only usable in a small area, which in this case means the constructor, from line 20 to line 25, or really between curly bracket, open curly bracket, close curly bracket. Can you refer to this team location? But now we have team location for the class, which we could access, and we have team location for the constructor, which we can access, and now we're in the constructor where both could be accessed. So how do we tell them apart? How do we say we want the field team location versus the string team location? And so the keyword this is what we do. So this dot team location means the class we are in, the team class. I want to get its field called team location. So this dot team location means the team location we created in line 4. If we assign that to team location, well, when we're in our constructor, or I guess when we're in any method, if you just type a variable name, it's going to refer to the closest variable name, in other words, the variable name with the smallest scope, the smallest place it can be used. So it's going to assume that when you type team location, that you want the team location that is a parameter, or a variable declared in the team constructor, and not the larger scope or the more broadly usable and accessible team location that is the field or the instance variable. So just typing team location means that you're getting the closest one. This dot team location will refer to the member variable. So this may actually be a bug saver more than anything else. But this keyword, the this dot, allows you to refer to the member variable. So that's trick number 1. Trick number 2, this is something that we're going to dive into in the coming weeks a little bit more deeply, but it's a concept called inheritance. Any class you create, so in this case the team class, is going to inherit methods and information from a superclass called the object class. Now what that actually means and what the implications are, it's a little bit complicated, and we're going to spend plenty of time working on it. It's an important concept for this semester. But in a practical application, let me show you something. When I create a team object, Elon, and I type Elon dot, and I look at the list of methods, well, all the ones that say -team are methods that I created and defined in my team class. There are also -object methods. Now the object class is a little bit of a misnomer because it's a class, not an object. However, it's important that there's some things that are just useful for all objects to be able to do, all classes you create to be able to do. And so some of these methods are inherited by default and available by default. One of those methods is the toString method. And specifically, it's if you type public string toString, open and close parentheses, this method header is inherited from the object class, and by overriding it, by defining it in this team class, it allows us to do a really special thing, which is, or a really kind of secret fancy thing, which is if I try to just print a team object, I print Elon, what I'm going to get out is the same thing I would have gotten out if I called the toString method. So this public string toString method is a built-in inherited special method that will automatically be called if you try to print an object, which is kind of cool because it saves us from having to type .toString over and over and over again. And in fact, it's a common enough method that's used that there's kind of a generally unspoken rule expected format when you print an object, which is something like this. This is a little debug printout where it's the class name, an open square bracket, the name of the first member variable and then its value, then second member variable, its value, third and its value, fourth and its value, and however many member variables you have. This is supposed to be a big debug printout that helps you read your information about your object. And so this format is like an unspoken rule, agreed upon thing by programmers that's generally expected, and allows you to debug more quickly and figure out what an object is doing, what its purpose is, more quickly when you start with a new object or a new class. You can create an object, print it, and then hopefully you will have this printout here. Now some people don't add it, sometimes it's not there, but it is a really nice thing to add, and it's kind of an unspoken, expected thing that people would want. So smart programming trick. Creating a toString is your little debug printout. Printing the object will just print it out. And that's kind of what we hope and expect to see. And so the very last thing, the third thing I already kind of mentioned, touched on a little bit when I was talking about our play game method. But this if one, where one is a Boolean, is good practice. It saves you from writing extra code. Yes, you can write equals equals true, and it will work the same thing. If one equals equals true, we do this top thing, else we do the bottom thing. But to experienced programmers, this is kind of a sign that you don't really know what you're doing with Booleans, because what this is an expression, and you're saying if true equals true, return true. If false equals true, return false. But if we just return or run the conditional based on just using the Boolean itself, if it's true, we're going to get true. If it's false, we're going to get false. Why add the extra step of evaluating an expression? So this is kind of a faux pas or bad practice, and if other programmers see it, they'll say, all right, well, you didn't learn Booleans very well because you're typing extra code. So this is kind of a nice way of minimizing that and looking like you know what you're doing a little bit, especially with Booleans. So those are the three kind of little tips and tricks that are really helpful in programming. Can help you write less code, help other, kind of lets other programmers know you have a pretty good sense of what you're doing. And it saves you from writing code, which is great because we're programmers, and programming, we like to be lazy, right? We're programmers. We don't want to like write out a bunch of extra code and stuff if we don't have to, right? We want to be lazy when we can, so let's be lazy. Let's take advantage of built-in systems to have to not type out .toString or not type out equals equals true. Also in general, kind of we try to avoid using this. There's no real reason for it, this dot. But if you have to, or if you choose to, then at least knowing what this dot does can also be helpful at times. So hopefully that's useful, interesting information, helps you feel like a smarter or better programmer if you can include a little bit of this in your day-to-day. I'll talk to you guys next time, and I'll try to keep up little tips and tricks if you want them. Thanks.